Another skill that we need to be pretty confident with is being able to identify the slope and the y-intercept of a straight line. Now, when it's in this form here, it's really easy to get the slope. The slope is just the coefficient of the x, and the y-intercept is the constant that's by itself at the end. So for our first function here, it's quite straightforward that the coefficient of x is 4. So we say that the slope m is equal to 4. Not 4x, not anything else, just 4. Okay, the slope is a number. And our y-intercept, so c, is minus 5. If you wanted to, you could write that as 0 minus 5, because we know that our x-intercept occurs when, our y-intercept occurs when x is 0. So that one's nice and straightforward. This one, we can't just say it's 2 here, the slope, because it's not in the form a single y equals mx plus c. We've got this times 3 happening. So to get rid of a times 3, we simply divide by 3. Now, you could divide each of these by 3, so 2 over 3x plus 1 over 3x. You could also, if you wanted to, write it as the whole thing, 2x plus 1 divided by 3, which is actually what you're saying here, because remember your fraction work. These are exactly the same. Which one is better? Well, the one that you like. So go with either one. Whichever method you're looking at, the slope will be the same, because remember it's the coefficient of x, the number in front of x. So here you can see that it's 2/3, and over here you can't just say it's 2 and it's being divided by 3. So either way you look at it, m is 2/3. And same with our y-intercept, that's just going to be 1/3, 1 over 3. So it's 1/3, or it's actually a coordinate, so it's 0, 1/3. Okay, so what we're trying to do is make sure that we get y by itself. We come to this one, y is not by itself, it's got this plus 2x, and it's a plus 2x not because of this plus here, but because it's a positive 2 out the front. In fact, it's like that, we've got that plus 2 there. So to get rid of it, to remove that entirely, we have to subtract. So I'm going to subtract 2x from here, because 2x take 2x is no x, that cancels out. But remember, what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So we end up with y equals 9 minus 2x. Okay, now if you wanted to rewrite that, you can, to have the x first. Now that will be minus 2x plus 9. You don't have to rewrite it, but just so you know, these again are the same. Notice the sign of negative is in front of the 2, and this 9, there wasn't anything here, so we assume it's a plus, so that becomes plus. And now it's in this form, I can simply say it's the slope is minus 2, and our y-intercept is 9. Okay? And remember that even though this is a negative number, this is actually a steeper slope than the 2/3. Okay? So when it's a positive number, we know it slopes to the right, it's increasing. So 2/3 would be maybe a gentle slope, because what's happening if it's rise over run, so it's rising by 2 and the run is 3. Here, when it's minus 2, it's going the other way, but it is steeper because it's going up by 2 and across by 1, rise over run. So remember, if we want to know what one is steepest, it's the largest number when we ignore the sign. Okay, keeping on going, let's do one more over here. Once again, we wish to get the y by itself. So like we did with the one upstairs, to get rid of this 4x, we are going to, it's a positive there, so we're going to subtract 4x. And what I do to one side, we must do to the other. And there are a few different ways to do this. You could have actually got rid of the take 5y if you wanted to. Anyway, we're going with this. So 4x take 4x disappears. What is left behind? Minus 5y. So we keep the minus 5y. On this side, we have 15 take 4x, or minus 4x plus 15. And we're now pretty similar to what we did up here. We don't want this times negative 5. We wish to divide by negative 5 to get rid of that times. So it's going to be minus 4 divided by minus 5 times x, and then it's 15 divided by -5. The more you do this, I'd like to think that you sort of ignore this line, because you would go straight to this one, that you know a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and you know that a positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. Always make sure you've got the lowest common terms there. And once again, we finish off m equals 4/5. That's your slope, and your y-intercept is -3. Again, 0, -3. So it's time for you to now practice. So try and have a go at each of these, rearrange and try and get y by itself, and then tell us what the slope and y-intercept is. If you pause the video now, so pause and have a go, and then you can have a look at the work solutions after. Okay, so we're first going to get rid of this times 3. So that will be each of these divided by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. And just be careful that you know that x over 3, right? So x over 3, that is actually the same as 1/3 times x. You don't have to rewrite it like that if you don't want to, as long as you are aware that the slope will actually be 1/3 and the y-intercept is 2. Okay. If we have a look at question 2, we've got 2x, take 4y equals 7. We will get the 4y by itself, so we have 2x. Actually, we'll get rid of that 2x, so that disappears. We're left with -4y. The 2x goes on the other side, so it becomes -2x plus 7. And now to get rid of the times -4, we're going to divide. Now negative divided by negative becomes a positive, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. I'm going to keep going a little bit further, because 2 over 4 is the same as a half. Now I can write that as a half x, or I could have written that as x over 2. And so my slope is a half, and my y-intercept is -7 over 4. Hopefully you are getting the hang of this. With question number 3, clearly not y by itself. This time, to get rid of this divide by 6, we're going to have to times by 6. And why did we get rid of the divide by 6 first? Because if I'm saying this to myself, I start with the unknown, y plus 5x divided by 6. The last thing that happened was a divide by 6, so we have to undo that. Now, I'm technically timesing this side by 6, and so they cancel, but again, what I do to one side, I do to the other. 4 times 6 is 24. We've seen ones in this form before. All we have to do is get rid of this 5x, and we look at in front. There's no negative sign there, which means that's a positive 5x. So to get rid of it, we're going to take 5x. I take 5x from this side and it disappears. So I do the same to the other side. It's minus 5x, and I've still got the plus 24. So the slope is -5, and the y-intercept is 24. Number 4, y over 2 equals 5x take 7. It's not one that's written in a very nice manner. It's not in the y-intercept or the general form, but we can still do this because we ask ourselves, we want y by itself. It's being divided by 2. What is the opposite of dividing by 2? Yep, we times by 2, and we times each term, so that becomes 10x take 14, and so we've got the slope is 10 and the y-intercept is -14. Now with question 5, oops, that should have been a y there. So it should have been a y, and just write that out again, so that becomes 10x plus 8y equals 5, and we're going to get rid of this plus 10x by taking, so we've got 8y equals minus 10x plus 5. To get rid of the times 8, we will divide by 8. And you just need to make sure now that you cancel this down. So that will be y equals, what's a number that goes into minus 10 and 8? Running out of room there, so we'll just pop it to the side. 2, so that will be minus 5 over 4x. Oh, what happened there? Over 8. Plus 5 over 8. So we've got a slope of minus 5 on 4 and a y-intercept of 5/8. Now, let's go back. Imagine if this was an x. If you did it for an x, you would have had 10x plus 8x is 18x equals 5. We get x by itself, which is 5 over 18, and this brings up a really good point that this represents a vertical line. Okay, and remember, what is the slope of a vertical line? That would have a slope that is undefined. Okay, lots of rise and no run. We know we can't divide by 0, so undefined slope. And I hope you then are asking, well, if that's for a vertical line, what happens if we have a horizontal line? So if we have a horizontal line of, let's say, y equals 4, that's going to be a horizontal line that passes through the point 4, and a horizontal line has a slope of 0, and its y-intercept, of course, will be whatever value the y passes through, so which is 4 in this case. Hopefully that gives you a little bit better understanding of our form of y equals mx plus c and how we can find our slope and y-intercept. There's more examples in your textbook and the worksheets that we've had, so hopefully you can practice a fair bit.